So in this course, we're going to be learning all about pivot tables and beyond. We're also going to be learning about pivot charts and then how to create a nice looking dashboard like the one you're looking at. So essentially what we're going to do is start with a raw data set. This is the exact one used in the course. We're going to take this raw data set. It's over 800 lines of data. It's multiple columns out to column R. And basically we're going to take the role of you started a new job, you're given this huge amount of data, and you're kind of told, make sense of this. Create some useful reports, pick kind of the main areas you think would be useful for management, and make something for us in Excel. A lot of people, unless you're familiar with pivot tables, would have a tough time with that. Like, where do you start with a data set like this? Well, with pivot tables, it becomes so much easier and so much more clear. So in the course, what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 different pivot tables and then also subsequently create nice charts that go with those. Now, beyond sort of the basic pivot tables that you're seeing here, as I click through, we actually explore multiple different columns and ways of slicing the data up multiple different ways. We kind of just settled and finalized all of our reports based on sort of the top performers, kind of the top, best averages, etc. But during the process, we're going to learn, the way of sort of exploring the data, trying different things, seeing what works, what doesn't work, what makes sense. So there's a bit of trial and error involved. So you get to see how that works. We'll create these charts. And then at the end, we're going to create a nice slick looking dashboard. And it, at most, this took an hour just to get through, create all of this. So you can imagine what's possible with this. So we got nice charts that are dynamic. As we change the filters over here, you'll be able to edit your graphs. Let's see, let's just demonstrate. That one didn't do too much, but you saw how that graph changed just by adding in different factors, etc. So we're going to create a nice dynamic dashboard by the end of the course. As for myself, my name is Chris Benjamin. I'll be the instructor. I've been using Excel for over 20 years. I'm an accounting and finance professional. I use Excel pretty much every single day, and working with large data sets is something that I'm very much involved in. So wanted to take my knowledge and information all about how to do this and put it together in course format for you guys. So glad again you signed up. Looking forward to being your instructor. Now let's go ahead and get started on taking this big data set and making sense of it. Alright everyone, so now that we've gone over some basics in Excel, some formatting, etc., which we actually won't be doing too much of that. We're really just going to focus on the pivot tables themselves, but I want to give you some tools beforehand just so you know how to navigate Excel a little bit if you're not familiar with. Nonetheless, so in this video, I want to introduce you to sort of the data set we're going to be using. This is real data. It's from over 10 years ago. It's kind of dated, but that's not the point of it. It still works, obviously, for our purposes. It's from a real estate company, so they were basically tracking in Excel all their deal flow, basically. You'll see things like offer status, so this is each individual offer and what the status was, the date, the last name of the person, the date it went pending, STI, etc. So there's quite a bit of information here. Property type, neighborhood, the agent, the list price, the offer price, the final price, which would be the sale price if a sale did go through. And then there's some additional information. Commission's a big one. We'll be doing some reporting on that. And dates of mutual acceptance and buyer type, etc. So essentially what we're going to be doing is pretending that we're in, I'm just going to go down to the bottom here, some errant cells over there. I want to see where the bottom of this data set is. There we go. So 827. So imagine, you work for this company and you're given, it's your first day on the job and you're given this data set. Your boss comes in and say, hey, here's all of our transactions for the last year. It looks like this spans quite a bit of time, or at least a year. This all seems to be 2006. So here's the data set for 2006. We want to do some analysis. Create us a nice looking report in Excel that we can update and we can, manipulate and look at our data in lots of different ways. How are we going to go about that? So, you're given 2 days to do it. Well, what are you going to do? So, first of all, pivot tables, the way to go, and pivot charts. So that's what we'll be focusing on in this course. So we're essentially going to play the role of yourself at your job. Here's your data set. What can we do with it to make some pretty cool reports? So just some other notes on pivot tables. In order to make nice pivot tables, and obviously we're going to get into like the specifics and kind of step by step. So first thing, you need a big data set, which we have here. So it wouldn't make sense to make a pivot table on 3 lines of data. We have 800 plus lines, so this works. You definitely need it to be in sort of an organized fashion like this is, with different column headings. There's a lot of blank fields in here just because of the nature of what they're doing. Like, they're not going to have a pending date when it was just an offer submitted, etc. So that's okay, but you want to make sure it's a complete data set in as much as it can be. You don't want a lot of blank rows at the bottom, so just going up to the bottom again. So when we select our data to create the pivot table, we're going to make sure it just selects from here upwards. And aside from that, guys, that's it. I mean, you need some uniformity as well. Like, you can't have offer status and have, lots of different things, or even more important than, say, a list price. You can have some of them be dollar amounts and some of them be, words and comments and things. That's not going to come out the best for our pivot table. So you want some uniformity in what is included in the data. So you want clean data, I guess, is the best way of saying that. Aside from that, we are good. So what we do when we get to creating our pivot table, we'll start in the next lecture actually doing the pivot table. I just want to introduce you to the data here. We're going to create multiple sheets for our different pivot tables. Each one will sort of be focused on one report where, basically we're just going to a degree, freestyle and figure out, well, what would be important. So our boss hasn't given us any direction. They just said, give us, some cool reports, what would be most useful for us. So they're mainly going to be interested in things obviously related to dollars. So we're probably going to create a commission report by agent. I think that's one that seems to make sense. We also might look at final prices, or maybe even lists. Let's look at list prices, maybe average list price by neighborhood. That might be an interesting report. And I already see some data that's, like this is lowercase, this is uppercase. So it'll be curious, and some don't have it. So I'll be curious to see, yeah, there's a few with blanks. So I'll be curious to see like how it comes out, and we can deal with fixing issues as we go. We're probably not going to do too many reports based on date. Like, we're not going to, there's not too much we can calculate, ultimately when we're doing the pivot table, we're trying to calculate something. So sums, averages, counts. I mean, we could do counts, on different dates, like how many houses closed in December and January, etc. We could do types of buyer types, and we could do a count on those. So like how many were first time, how many were experienced, and then investors. So we might do a count on that, etc. So we'll come up with some ideas as we go, see how they come out, and if it's actually useful. Like, we'll know once we create the report if it seems like it's useful information that we want to present to management. So once we create all of our different pivot tables, we'll then create a dashboard, sort of a one-stop location for them, where we will combine all those charts into one master dashboard, and then we're going to give them some functionality where they can choose different things in. So maybe they want to filter out by agent, so they want to see all the different reports filtered by a specific agent or a specific neighborhood, etc. So it should be pretty cool. You're going to like what we come up with. That said, let's end this lecture, and the next one, let's get started on creating our first pivot table.